And call this meeting to order. If everyone can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And the only item on today's agenda is discussion of the 1856 Academy. I'm just going to ask that everyone remain calm and courteous of everyone. And we do have a microphone. So if you have comments, if you please go up to the microphone. If you can't go up to the microphone, we'll find a way to get it to you.
Can't hear you in the back.
Okay.
Really? Very hard to hear you.
So the only thing on today's agenda is the 1856 Academy, and we just would like to ask everyone to remain calm and courteous and respectful of everyone else. Everyone's going to have a chance to speak, but we want to make sure everyone's tempers stay in check. And we would like people to please use the microphone because, as you just heard, not everyone's going to be able to project otherwise. I don't know if anyone on the board would like to start first with their comments, or if someone from the committee would like to start first.
If your meeting might be started, if we can answer questions, we will.
Okay, great. I know my stance is I really like the idea of establishing a nonprofit and seeing where we could go from there. When I look at what happened with the Firehouse Museum and how that we established, or well, we obviously didn't, but a nonprofit was established, and then they were able to renovate that building with the assistance of Maine Cabin Masters, which that company now has a vested interest in the community. That's something that maybe if a nonprofit was established, we could look into down the road, working with them if possible. But that's where I'm at, is I'd like to see a nonprofit established.
I mean, we have a couple options. From what we've heard from the taxpayers is we can't just continue with the status quo.
We can't spend any more money.
Yes, we can't spend any more money at this point. The taxpayers, in my opinion, have not been on board with this for a period of time. And even if the building was completely finished, I don't think the taxpayers want the year-to-year expenses that this building are going to create. I had said at the last select board meeting that I really hate to see this building sold. I would like to would have liked to seen something different happen, like the nonprofit. We did have 450 some odd supporters that voted yes to fund this project. And it's our job as select board members to represent all the people, not just the people that voted yes, not just the people that voted no. We had 780 something people that voted no. So we have to do something. And other than creating a nonprofit so this would continue, I don't see another path forward. And maybe someone else sees a better path, or but we have to find a direction to move in.
Can I ask a clarifying question from something you said before, just so that
Sure.
Yeah.
I make sure? You said that there are 780 citizens who voted, who said no,
Yes,
and 450 yes. Are those from the last vote for the 187,000? Or is that 780 no for that last vote and 450-ish that said?
that was from the last vote for the 187,000. Yes. Let Larry speak.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Larry Bucci. I'm on the committee, and I would just like to remind you that the town of Monmouth owns Compton Park, and they have an agreement with the nonprofit Kahnawake Agricultural Society and the nonprofit Kahnawake Trailblazer. So there is a precedent that the town can own the land and lease the building and lease the operation to nonprofit organizations. So to have a nonprofit run Monmouth Academy, we don't have to sell it to the nonprofit. There are businesses, and as you all know, a lot of businesses don't wanna own a building, they're just happy to lease the buildings. And a lot of businesses that are leasing buildings will do the interior work to get the building up to what they want, what they need. And then, but they like a nice long-term lease. So it is possible that that building could be leased for 25 years to a nonprofit, $1 a year, and the nonprofit would pay for the sewer, the water, the electricity, the heating, and the maintenance of the building, and it wouldn't cost the town anything, the taxpayers anything. And at the end of 25 years, the town still owns that valuable piece of real estate and the building. So I just wanted to remind you of that situation that we already have at Cumston Park.
I'm coming down. Yes, sir.
Okay, can people hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Rudy Johnson, and I'm one of the supporters. I guess we're here to talk about Monmouth Academy. And I get that. But I think more important than Monmouth Academy is Monmouth. Now, I say that because of this. We have, as a community, have been able to grow and prosper and still hold on to some of our older buildings. Thanks to a man by the name of Earl Flanders, who created a museum. Now that museum is unique. There is not another museum like that within 100 miles of this place. It's not the artifacts that make the museum unique, it's the buildings. Now, when I was a kid growing up, people used to move to Monmouth because of our beaches and our lakes and our culture and our buildings and our library and our churches and our schools. That's why they moved to Monmouth. So one question I will ask everybody, you don't need to answer this, because why did you move to Monmouth? Why not leave Greene County? Their taxes are every bit as high as yours. And they don't have the culture. Now, getting back to the academy a little bit, well, let me say this first. I ordered some stone to do a project that I'm working on. And when they told me the price of that stone, I just about flipped. And I said, wow. And he said, look, that's quality stone. And if you want quality stone, you gotta pay quality price. Okay, well, I got thinking, quality. So I'm gonna ask you people, what quality of life do you want for your kids growing up in this community? Do you want a Hannaford's? Do you want a Amazon distribution center? Do you want to sell the academy and have another pot house that's dotting the streets between Worcester and Augusta? Now let me tell you about Monmouth Academy. Monmouth Academy is an institution. It was established in 1803, 223 years ago. To put that in a little bit of perspective, Monmouth Academy has been here 100 years, 103 years more than Cumston Hall. So, do you want to raise your family and have the culture that we have, or do you want to sacrifice that and sell it? Because to me, selling that building, you'll never recoup, period. And to me, to have that building anything other than an academy, which is what it was, like I said, it's an institution, that I would add a fourth category to your options. Got 3 steps to it. Raise your insurance, sell me the bell, and burn it to the ground.
Too late for the whole bit. Check one.
Anyone else have more comments? Please come up to the microphone. This is really a meeting for the town. This is pretty much a public comment period for the whole meeting.
My name's Joe Saunders. I've been living in Monmouth since 1998. I live on Beach Road. My taxes now went up to $8,800 a year. I cannot afford any more taxes at all. All right, on the Social Security at $2,100 a month. You figure out that's a huge chunk. I moved here from away. As a result, I don't have any attachment to that academy. And I want to remind you that you guys don't just represent the people who voted here. You represent all the people around the various lakes that own property and who are paying taxes. I'm sure they don't want their taxes going up either. That's all I'm gonna say. Enough with the taxes.
Thank you.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, of course.
Did you hear me without the microphone? I hear taxes, taxes, taxes. What's the number? How much of your taxes gonna go up? Give me a number. That number is critical. That number is critical for people to make a decision. If you just, I'm just gonna arbitrarily think, if it costs you $10,000 to plow the building, $10,000 to mow the lawn, $10,000 for electricity, $10,000 for heat, $10,000 for toilet paper, or somebody mentioned on the, thing, that's $50,000. We have what, 4,000 something people in the town of Monmouth with a 2,000 tax base? So what's it going, the taxes gonna go up $25? $25 a year to keep a 200 a year old building? $25. And I don't know these numbers to be true, I'm just arbitrarily saying, you need to check out on your own. But I'm just saying that, hell, most everybody in here could probably cash in their beer bonds for $25 a year. $25 a year to keep your culture, $25 a year. So when I hear taxes, give me a number. I don't wanna see taxes go up either, but it's a real fallacy to sit here and think that your taxes went up because of all of the county.
Okay, I'm gonna let Darlene comment, and then there's a woman in the back row who had her hand up.
I think when we think about taxes, we need to put things in perspective in the town of Monmouth. 68% of our taxes goes to where? The schools. 7 or 8% goes to the county. That leaves what we can affect as a board. 26%, 27%. That's the amount we as a board can affect. So when we talk about us not having your taxes go up and us not making them go up, we can affect what we get for taxes for the school. And I understand and I get that we want a good education and all that, but I keep hearing taxes, 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 but we're looking at the wrong place to solve that issue. We don't solve it by getting rid of Monmouth Academy. We don't solve it by only keeping things exactly the same in town, keeping the status quo. The budget for our town didn't go up more than 3% last year. The stuff that we can affect as a board and what we can vote on as a town. Because your vote, when you vote on the school budget, when you vote on the school budget, whether you vote yes or no, what happens with that budget? Do we have a choice in that budget? We do not. Because it is passed. So I think you get upset when the select board raises taxes. We do what we can to keep them flat.
I think that woman had a question first.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Wood, and I agree to some aspect that $25 or, you know, whatever a year isn't much, but that's just for the academy. That is not all of the other things in town that are taxes, and 27% other things that are taxes are affected. And you're right, things should stay status quo, and the reality is they don't stay status quo, because year after year, there is inflation. Taxes do go up for everybody, and that's going to be a standard. And I'm not necessarily, you know, for selling the building, but I am very adamant that I don't think that the town should pay any more money for this building. Whether it's maintaining it, whether it's, you know, matching funds for grant money that so far no one has been able to procure. So I do understand that on the, you know, smaller scale, it looks like, okay, our taxes may only go up, you know, $2,500 or maybe $100 a year, but that's just for this one project. It doesn't include everything else that we have in our town and everything else that goes up. Roofs that need to be put on buildings, plowing equipment, you know, places to store sand. There are all kinds of other expenses, and we are a very small community in retrospect. And I think it's important for us to pull together and find a way that both sides of this can somehow compromise and both entities can be good, so to speak.
Thank you.
Kind of gonna be the same thing. It's, if you say it's only 25,000, it's 25,000. Dennis, hold on. It's 25,000 for that, and then 25,000 for the, you know, 25,000 keeps on adding up. Granted, the select board only has control of X amount, whatever the percentage is. That X amount you can control, and right now, by just saying spend, that's not controlling, that's just spending. So.
We
like,
can't
this-
spend any money without the town's vote.
Even with the town code, you still just keep on bringing it back to spend on it, like the town has voted 4 years in a row. Not to pay for the grant, the.
And we haven't.
But what I'm saying is 4 years in a row, they said, no, we just still keep on coming back with, now we just want this, now we just want that. And it's not just $25,000 for the cost, somehow the building still needs to get done at the inside cost being $950,000. So on top of the 25,000, let's throw $950, and then you still got the outside that nobody even actually wants to talk about. There's a number that's applied to that, so let's call it over $1 million. Just to finish it, if you can't get grants and you can't get the donations, it has to come from the taxpayers. So it's not just $25,000.
It doesn't have to come from the taxpayers.
Well, for the last 5 years, it's been that plus $132,000 or $127,244 in donation. So other than that, it's come from taxpayers. So. I just mimicking the same thing, it's not just 25,000, it's a lot more.
Thank you. You've been waiting for a little bit.
So the goal is to keep the building because we've got nothing to lose, right? Hold on a second.
No, she didn't want to.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Stacy. I did hear you. I apologize. Thank you. Goal is to keep the building. We are already paying the bond, right? We're in debt until 2036, correct? We're looking at the overall picture. Y'all have done a great job. So I need to say that. You're not gonna like what I have to say, but I do need to say that. I believe in small steps. I believe in planting the seed and then letting it grow, right? In the thought process. And this is just a thought process. I heard Larry, who's she? The other night talk about grants, right? Am I right? Talk about grants, 2 years, and I've got it written down here. There's always gonna be money There's always gonna be, there's always gonna be something that can come up that this is going to fit the pocket. We need to get to that time frame to allow that to happen, right? Start small. I've already approached you about this, I know you didn't like it, but I'm going to start small. You can fit 48 tables in that building, you could do several different things. The Winthrop mill has the vault. And that brings people in everywhere, doesn't have to be that big.
They
Oh.
need you to speak.
Sorry.
John.
It doesn't have to be that big, right? The vault, it doesn't have to be just like that. But it's money. If you do 6-foot tables, hold on. It's like $1,100 a month. If you can do this. Right? I have the breakdown, 6-foot tables at $20. You take, 4 corners, make those premium, and then charge $25, thank you. And then, 8-foot for $25 and the corners for $30. It's a small amount, but it's gotta start somewhere. Y'all don't want the tax. If nobody else is coming up with ideas, why can't we try? Community gardening, a vintage car, people bring their cars out. You have a 50/50 raffle, you have a $2 or $5 donation entry fee. This can all be done, also, the booking can be taken care of online. So there's no added anything really, other than, hey, this is the advertising, this is what's gonna happen, you bring your table, I've done vendor craft shows. I don't, and we're not gonna need any electricity, right? Do a farmer's market. We have artists do an artist show, bring people into the town. We have the talent here, we're not showing it, we're not showcasing it. The problem is, you say culture. We have several generations that don't appreciate that culture because they have no root in the community. If you make this a community building, something that everybody can be proud of, that's gonna grow. You're gonna get more donations, you're gonna get more grants because you've got more people passionate about that building. You're gonna get more support. I'll support you. I'll help you any way I can, and I'm also on 4 other big committees, including 2 states. So I will support you. I do RFPs for a living. I've done federal grants. I can help. But this community has to be together. I heard somebody say that you volunteered to help at one point, to do some donating some time.
I went back and watched that video, I said if I was 1000% on board, it did cost me tax money, I would help.
So what if that could happen?
If there was no taxes out of
Does anybody-
it, but they would want mine.
Does anybody here, would anybody that knows how to play a guitar, willing to do guitar lessons, set up some chairs, and do 10 or 15 bucks? And teach kids that already have guitars, how many didn't have a kid that had a guitar? I had one. And I had to fight to find a guitar, instructor for that. At 22. My point is, we all have talent, we can all donate some time, gardening. Like I said, do a community garden, I don't know, there's something about a community garden over Eights, I don't know how that all turned out. It's just an idea. We've got so many people close in the area rather than if we go further out, right? Those things can happen and money can start generating into an account that doesn't touch your reserve. And doesn't touch your taxes, but it gives us time to be able to build something. For Larry to have the time to be able to put forth the good grants. And we're still having to pay that bond. Any way you look at it, you demolish it, we're still paying the bond. Exactly. Leasing it personally from a real estate agent, Brian, who can help me with this. From a real estate brokerage, point of view, leasing that building is a great idea in theory. It drops down by having them build it out, your leasability is less. Normally, it would be, hey, we're gonna build that out for you for exactly how you want it for the next 25 years, rather than the other way around. So that does make that smaller, and what would bring the draw to the town for that type of business that you're looking for? Right now, nothing. We have Quick Stop that's turning their grill off at 12:30. That is horrible. We, as a town, as small business owners, need to help each other out. And how are we gonna do that? Some of these ideas, you'd be helping out if we let them have some space, they would pay for it, but not at high prices. You're supporting small business in the town. You're generating that. I'm not gonna keep beating a dead horse. But I think it's possible. And if you continue to have a narrow mind about this building is going to stay the way it is. Because it's not going anywhere. And we're not putting any more money into it, out of taxpayers' money. So there's only one way to do this, and it's to come together as a town. What divides us needs to bring us together. And those children, the ones that are looking at things to do, hey, how about seeing if the school would allow you to bring on one of the kids and give them credit? Don't they still do 60-hour credits to graduate? I don't know, I haven't had a kid in school in many years.
Community service.
I'm sorry,
They have extended learning opportunities.
so why not bring that up? Why can't the board approach that with something that we have?
I mean, these are all really good ideas. I think that maybe it would be a good idea for you to submit an application to join the 1856 committee. Because, it sounds like you want to be involved in it. So I definitely think that while we look for a path forward and the committee, because until we make a decision if we're selling or if it's going to a nonprofit, the committee is still going to exist. So I would recommend that you go that route. I'm sorry?
But you wanted ideas.
Yes,
on how to
definitely.
move forward.
No, and those were all great. We really appreciate it. There had been a gentleman behind Dennis who had his hand up for a bit.
Gary Merrill, grew up in this town. My family, kids both went to school in this town. One of them still lives in this town. I can't fathom that we're still talking about this topic after 4 years, right? The nostalgia of 1856. I went to school there, many teachers were there. There's some great memories. Outside of this group, outside of any Facebook, talk to somebody that's not part of this group, part of any Facebook, whatever side you're on, and ask them, what's the one thing that you think of when you think about Monmouth Academy? It's not that academy. It's in this building we're sitting in right here. We're gonna, regardless where we're at, right? I get to see the general ledger, right? I work at a business that I manage $60 million. How big is this? How much money do we invest or how much money do we spend in this town? Is it anywhere near that? Right? I'm held accountable by accountants, corporate accountants, on every penny. We have to follow a general ledger. Do we even have a general ledger that we can look at? How do we get to the point of how much money we have spent in this building and it's still incomplete, right? I'm all for supporting the building, but at what point do we draw the line? And we can all say the nostalgic, we went to school there, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. I haven't seen anything that's going to prove to me that that building is gonna generate money year over year to cover the operational expenses. And I'll be more than glad to sit down with anybody if they can show that it's going to. I mean, we can talk about the what ifs, we can talk about grants, we can talk about leasing. Leasing is a terrible idea. You still have costs there. We're gonna still have to cover whatever insurance and bonds that we need, that costs money. It's not free. Everything costs money. So at what point, does this come to an end? Whether we board it up and we let it sit there when we pay the bond, If we're not gonna be able to sell it, at what point do we say, hey, you know, get more people involved? All I can tell you is that people outside of this committee that's here, the people that are up on the board, people that are in any social media, you ask them, what is the one thing you hear about Monmouth Academy? It's this building we're sitting in, and we're sitting here talking about a building that my kids don't care about. I really don't care about. Maybe there's other people in this room have more sentimental values, then that's great. But does the sentimental value overwrite our costs, operating costs, year over year over year over year? And we continue to vote on it, we continue to debate it. So I'd be happy to look at a general ledger just to see, where's all this money gone to in this building? And where we're at today. I mean, maybe I've missed the meetings or the memos where that general ledger is, and how much money has been already invested and how much more is gonna go into it. But it sure would be nice to be able to make a good educational decision. Where are we at as far as the spending? How much have we spent? How did we get over? And I don't wanna hear about COVID, right? Because I worked through COVID in the business that I'm working in, right? And you don't go to an accountant, you don't go to corporate accounting and say, oh yeah, this is because of COVID, right? You gotta work through that and you spend what you have and what you can afford and what you have for income coming in. I mean, so, people may be sitting here and saying, no, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. But I can just tell you one thing, ask somebody that doesn't get involved in any of these meetings, any of these social media things, and ask them, what do they think about Monmouth? What the one thing that brings them? Yeah, the lakes, the beach. But it's this building we're in, so that's my nickel's worth for what it's worth. And thanks for your time.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
First thing I want to address is the cost to operate in this building. I've been talking, nobody seems to have a figure, and we came up with a pretty close figure. But we put together a budget that pays for the heating, CMP, telephone, I'm not sure, because municipalities sometimes get internet and telephone service without much of a cost. Building maintenance would be cleaning, building repairs, general expenses, grounds, and then summer mowing and winter plowing. Our town does that, so it really doesn't cost us out of pocket at this point. But you add that together, and that's $30,000 a year. 30,000, okay? And you look at a budget, the Monmouth budget, if I don't know about the exact number, but it's over $4 million a year we pay. That 30,000 is less than 1% of the cost of that budget. And you can't tell me that 1% is gonna drive the tax rates, so people can't afford to eat, or people can't afford to pay their taxes. Less than 1%. Now, this whole building was set up to be restored. That was the original idea when voted on. And if they voted yes, they wanted to keep the building and restore it. And that's where the bond money came in. And yes, there are a lot of promises made from what I understand. I don't know for a fact that grant money is going to raise the rest. Well, that's a false pretense right there. Grant money will not pay for all of this. There has to be some investment from other things. Maybe not the town, maybe from individuals, philanthropies. I don't know. I write grants here and we've had very little success. Doesn't mean we're not going to continue, because we are. I'm going to continue to write grants and ask for money. But again, in the economy we have right now, the grant money is extremely competitive. And I've heard that from people in the foundations and other areas that say, anybody looking for money, there might be 300 applications for $25,000. And then all they can give out is $100,000 or $100. So it's not cut and dry. And like, just to remind people, I've worked in local government for close to 30 years. And a lot of people misunderstand what the function of local government is. And it's to provide services that most people would not be able to afford on their own. And we're supposed to take care of our buildings and our infrastructure and other areas, transfer stations. It costs money to run a town. You're not gonna get away cheap. It just is a fact of life. And yes, businesses can look at things the way they do, but that's not the same as municipal government. We provide services to the public, so everybody gets to share in everything that we provide, not just one person. So for me, it's very hard to see that this community would not support keeping and restoring a building that holds a lot of value to some people. Okay, I bought my family here 38 years ago, and one of the reasons I came here was because of the quality of the education. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a comment. Just a few comments on some of the things that I've heard already is that Mr. Nato, to what I've seen, there hasn't really been a great accounting for money within the project. It's not part of like the town's books. I recently just saw a spreadsheet that the town didn't even have, and it didn't really add up. So that does concern me as well. Is there a service in the town that we currently don't provide that building would provide?
Mission of the committee was to provide a space for public use, whether it's people getting together during the day to gather and have coffee together or play games together. It was going to be used for meetings such as this, because we don't have a large enough room even for voting in the building that we have currently. And we had people complain about that. So there's a lot of uses. And I have seen in many communities that have community centers like what we're proposing, they grow astronomically with use. And it doesn't mean it's always going to cost you money. It means people use the building because they won't have something in their community that they'd like to do there. And I can give you all kinds of examples of things that go on in community centers. So.
I guess what I'm saying is, isn't this like a big community center already?
This building?
Yeah,
Yeah.
No,
yeah. We don't do like food truck Fridays,
That,
shows. You can rent it out, anybody can use it, right, for fees. And I mean, I'm just.
Yeah, go ahead.
This. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna get this out of the way. You're done playing.
my name is Lori Gifford, and I have been on the building committee. I was on the committee to determine and find out what the best use of the building was. I have been here since 1957. That building does hold a lot for me. My father was principal from 1957 to 1966, and then he was superintendent from 1966 to 1984. When I think of Monmouth, I think of Monmouth Academy. As far as use of the building, when we started the renovations, the thought was, of course, to have a place to go vote, because I don't know how many of you were actually at the building this year for voting. There were so many complaints because so many people at that time turned out to vote that the design which the state approves, there was not enough room for people to go around. And one person actually came up and is going to write a complaint, she said, because she did not feel she had more privacy, because people were standing around her in order to get to where she could put her ballot in. So the use of that building would make the flow better. It is also handicap accessible because we do have the ability to get people in. my understanding is the, what do you call it, the superintendent's building?
117.
117, there is a step going out, so it is not handicap accessible if someone were to come. We also have said that we would like people to use it for a small reception, or, you know, they could rent it to have a wedding. They could have, a cribbage group that comes in, which I know, the place, Martindale and Lisbon, they have it, and they're like 40 to 60 people every single week, and they pay to do that. So it is our thought to design it as a community building, and, you know, people can come in and use to do whatever they would like to do. Also, our understanding is that the town office is looking for places to store their files, and some are here, some are at the town office, and there is a room that they could use. Also, just for everybody to know, there is a kitchen, it's called a caterer's kitchen, and all the pieces of equipment have been donated in memory of one of the ladies who lived here in Monmouth. And so it's no expense to us at all. So that is our vision, is that it is something to have. Right now, we can't have people in there because it's not insulated and the wall board isn't up. So, but that would be great to do things like that. I think that would be wonderful. But we have to get it there so that we can use it. So that's all.
Lori, before you sit down, can I ask you a question?
I had my hand up. Patient.
Yeah, just where she's a board member, we're gonna let her go first and then.
Sorry, Jerry.
Okay.
I'll make it up to you later. My question is, Brian had made a comment about funds. My understanding is that all the funds for that building were in the town coffers, and any disbursements that were made that way.
That's more your,
I can speak to
because you have the.
So we had Dawn Hodgson, who had initially set up our spreadsheet, and she was a master. She was an accountant. She worked for CMP for a very long time, and then she and her husband owned a multi-million-dollar company here in town. And she developed the spreadsheet and was in charge of that spreadsheet. And any expenditures, we approved the invoices that came in on our committee. They went to our architect. The architect signed off on them. Then those invoices went to the select board and were approved on a warrant. And Dawn meticulously kept track of every dollar spent. And when she passed away suddenly, a year ago May, that spreadsheet went to our town accountant, and she went through it with Justin. They asked me a couple of questions because I had worked with Dawn a bit on it. I'm not a master of the spreadsheet, but I understood her spreadsheet. And after she passed away, I was the one that continued to enter the invoices onto the spreadsheet each month as we were received invoices. And the town accountant went through that spreadsheet a year ago May when Dawn passed away and said everything was on board and perfect. So I guess you can shake your head, Brian, but I'm sure you talked to Jessica about it, right?
I just saw it in my email from the admin, and it didn't add up.
So the only item in there that I don't know her calculation on the spreadsheet is the donation one. I'm not sure what her formula was on that, so I've never used her donation because I have a separate spreadsheet of donations. So the only number I have never touched is the donation because I wasn't sure of her formula on the spreadsheet. And, you know, I can say Jessica and Justin went through that spreadsheet.
And the
Okay.
donations are made out to
The donations are all made out to the town of Monmouth with a notation in the memo, 1856 Academy. And then those have its own number in our bookkeeping system. So all the donations, if I ask Lori for a report, she pulls that donation report and sends it to me. So I can double check the donations that I know of compared to the donations that have come in. And if I had some, for some reason that Lori didn't have, or Lori had some that I didn't know of, we could make sure that between the donation report and the spreadsheet that we have keeping track of donations, it's all checked and balanced, so.
Can I just say, not me, Lori, but.
Lori.
It was a little bit more than that. I think what on the spreadsheet was, is that it was just a little confusing. You know, everybody kind of wanted to see the $1.5 million itemized out, and it's really not, you know, it's kind of just says Nickerson and O'Day, $1.136 million. I mean, that's not really kind of just showing us where it went. It just kind of showed that it went to Nickerson O'Day. You spent $200,000 on Paul Design, and $447,000 on a demo. And that's pretty much what the spreadsheet pulls out. And it's kind of disturbing that it's just not all listed out. It's not listed out in categories or class code in any way, shape, or form.
So then you take the invoice from that month, and there's an invoice that checks into that month. So there's an invoice with the detail from Nickerson and O'Day for May 2023. And so there's a number on the spreadsheet, but then there's an invoice that relates to that master number. So.
And if you add that up, it didn't add up to 1.1 million. I think that was the hard part.
1.7, because we borrowed 1.5.
Right,
And we had $200,000 from the sale of HL Petrus.
right.
So it was 1.7, and then the money that, the donations, there is a number there for donations, but when Dawn passed away, that was one discussion I never had with her, was about her formula for that spreadsheet box. And for those of you that know spreadsheets, if you don't know the formula that's calculating out of that spreadsheet, and that's where I can work backwards on the donations because it's a separate spreadsheet, so. But, you know, there's a spreadsheet that gives you the basic number. And then there's an invoice that relates to that month that gives you the detail. And all those invoices are available. So,
But not on the spreadsheet, right?
well, no, because how do you put all that information on a simple spreadsheet that you're tracking the number? So-
Well, you have it listed out with some miscellaneous costs. You itemize dire soda blasting, Fabian Oil, fencing, line to limb, sewer district, and a lot of other things, but just not Nickerson O'Day.
Well, because they were a contractor, and so any contractor that we were paying had its own line. And then when we added contractors like Line to Limb, who donated a ton of time, money, and energy to removing the dangerous pine trees that had fallen and hit the brand new roof, they were a separate line, a separate expenditure, so they weren't part of Nickerson and O'Day. Nickerson and O'Day was one vendor. So Dire Soda Blasting, who removed the lead paint from the brickwork, they were a separate vendor. Then Paul Design obviously is a separate vendor, so each vendor had their own line.
But even though I think it should have been, it was outlined in the contract what some of this money was being spent for, so I think it should have
Go
definitely been.
back and
Yeah,
change
I agree.
what's
I
happening.
don't know if you guys have seen the spreadsheet.
No, I
Like it-
I think that's something that
Yeah,
maybe we should get a chance to look at. But I did know Mr. Nato had a question a little bit ago. Oh.
I have 2 years in which is right here, it's more matched up the letter. They do not state, it only gives people's hours. Then it gives the stuff that they use, but it doesn't tell you what they used it for, where, it doesn't say inside building, outside of building. It is so generic, it's not even, I mean, legitimately, this is the whole one. On one page. And the whole bottom of it is just rental plots, so this is ours, so that's what the rest of it looks like, I mean. Yeah, we can go on.
Okay. We're gonna let Mr. Nato go
Yeah,
quickly
go ahead.
first.
I got two things. First of all, to the board, can somebody tell me, is the building still qualify as a historical building?
It does not have official designation,
So that's not even in play, right?
not this
So-
time.
One of the things I just wanted to talk about to people in here, right? Dreams, hopes, possibilities. Do you operate your expenses at home, day-to-day living on hopes and dreams and so them? I can't. I can't in the business I run, and I can't do it in my personal life. So, I truly wanna see something happen here, but I think that after 4 years. And all of the uncertainty and, basic. Basic documentation in the general ledger for documenting specific expenses, that, for me, I don't know if this is the right word, distrust, and, we can talk about wedding halls and gatherings and stuff like that. But that doesn't guarantee us that that's gonna be occupied at least 5 days a week. Or even on a Saturday or Sunday. So we're back to hopes, dreams and possibilities. And, I hope that at some point we can, at least as a community. Come together as a group to decide, again, like I said earlier, right? And I talk to people that are outside of this whole committee, there's people that are in this room, people that are close and near and dear to this building. When you ask them about money. What's the first thing you think of? It's not the academy. I mean, I've been living here for a long time, I went to school in the building that's over here, that's an apartment building now. Right, so I've been here quite a long time, I would say I'm a Monmouth resident at this point. It's just kind of bewildering that, here we are. Again, on hopes, dreams and possibilities, and I wish that those things came true once in a while, because I probably wouldn't have to work anymore, I could afford my taxes, for the town. So, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Few questions. I think Jennifer was first.
I have a clarifying question for the board or the committee. On the original warrant, for the $1.5 million, did it indicate that the actual amount borrowed may be reduced by fundraising and grants? Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And to date, how much money has been put towards the principal amount or the interest from fundraising or grants?
There's, yeah, I don't think there's a way to separate that for sure.
Yeah. I don't have the figures there in front of me, but I know this is bring it. But because we only have 60,000 left, so that means some of it was expended.
So you can say 68,000.
And to continue the resolution.
And can't answer that question. I just do it on time.
Okay, and my question is for clarification, was any grant money or any donations put towards what the warrant said it was going to be, which was towards paying down the debt?
Lisa, like right now. Oh, she had her hand up earlier. Can she go first? Thank you.
I'm Cindy Parker. There are a couple things here. One, I've heard folks that, there's the word taxes floating around everywhere. Maybe a suggestion for the select board is if the select board and the committee could work together to perhaps put a dollar figure together to what is it $25 a year, in taxes, the particular that is going towards paying that back, and the number of people in town, et cetera, et cetera. So perhaps concrete, yes, would be a good thing to work on, so that can be told to people, and maybe the next board meeting or, you know, either committee meeting or select board meeting, perhaps that can be, the told to the public, so it's the once you come up with that number, it's a good number to come up with, that's, you know, one thing. I don't want to go down the thought road, I think we get tied up in that. At the same time, just to say, some folks know me here, yeah, I grew up in Monmouth, graduated from Monmouth again. I moved away on purpose. As a lot of us did when we were 18, 20 years old, I moved away on purpose. Couldn't wait to get out of town. I came back 20 years later on purpose. I came back because I didn't come back to Thompson Hall, although it's pretty cool. I didn't come back because of Mom again. I didn't come back because I had friends here. Heck, I've been gone for 20 years and I didn't stay in touch. I came back for a few weird reasons, but the reason that I stayed back is because for the first 2 weeks here, after coming back, after being gone for 20 years, first 2 weeks, I was driving around with my mouth open. This place is so beautiful. I lived in Boston and other cities and other small towns, suburban, whatever. I came back and I was like, you know what? I never noticed this, neither did you when we're teenagers. I never noticed how amazing this town is in all kinds of ways, not just the beauty. I joined the Conservation Commission the first few years they were doing it, and one of the things we were tasked with was, and it was a brand new, this was the first iteration of the Conservation Commission. One of the things we were tasked with is, what are the assets of Monmouth? What does Monmouth have for assets? We were like, okay, well, you know, all right, yeah, Thompson Hall. And the natural surroundings, you know, the lakes, the snowmobiling possibilities, it went on hunting, it went on and on. And then it was like a third category that we had a hard time finding words for. And somebody might say culture, and somebody might say, I don't know what, but that doesn't quite get it either, and people get tied up in the word culture. I think the term that we got closest to was a sense of community and a feeling that people in town care about the town. And yeah, there's always gonna be an argument, but there's something there, there's something in that. Monmouth, I call it Mount Calumet, adds to that in a way. It has the potential, put it this way, it has the potential for adding to that. The sense of community that we identify in our list of assets of Monmouth, that needs some boosting up. The sense of community, I wanted the Henrietta Trail School to become a community center. It was kind of a great layout for it. I also got to know in my travels, because my folks live in South Carolina, I got to know the community center. Holy cats almighty, what happens down there? And it's every town has got one. It would be the equivalent of Monmouth having one, and Green having one, and Turner having one, and you know, not every single darn town, not necessarily everyone, but like you go to town, there's another community center, 2 towns again, another community center. They're big, what they really do is they pull people in. They have things like classes, they have oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes a gymnasium. They have something like maybe half the size of the cafeteria or that kind of stuff. They have yoga classes and reading groups and it really does go on. These places are open, you know, 12 hours a day, you know, 6 days a week. Never open on a Sunday because, you know, I was looking at the Carolinas. But anyway, yeah, something that's what Monmouth needs, a bit of this boosting of community. You know, another some sort of retail, someplace, something for people to walk in on Main Street, Monmouth. You know, we're needing some stuff here, people. So you know, I don't live my total day to day on Hope Stream's possibility. But if I don't keep those things in mind, what am I doing? Why am I bothering to live? You know, if I'm not working towards Hope Stream's possibility, you know, there is something about that. Anyway, the boosting that I think this can bring to Monmouth, yeah, I'd say it's worth it. Thanks.
Thank you. Leave you had a
What's
question.
looking into?
Yes.
My name's Steve Galenda. I won, I think, about 47 years ago. And something I really like about our town, people have said, is our form of government, which is the town meeting form of government. If you don't know it, it's often called the most purest form of democracy. Because you, the people, and everyone else in this town vote for everything. The selectmen, they make suggestions, but you vote for it. And if the selectmen are, I think they're paying attention to that. So we've had 4 votes recently on the 1856 bill that were all overwhelmingly rejected. They don't want to spend any money on building, they don't want to spend it on heating or maintenance. So I think that leads to what should be now put forward in front of the voters. And that would be, should the building be sold? I think that should be a direct question put out there. If they vote for it, well, then you take steps to sell it. If they vote against it, things can go on. But I think that's the only fair way to respond, that the voters have overwhelmingly said no more spending on this plan. So I've thought of how we should sell this building. I think the goal should be to recover half of the money that's been spent on it. And I think they've spent about 1.2 million. So the goal should be to put that building for sale for approximately $600,000. Now, I'm not a real estate person, and I'm sure we could find people to come up with the accurate number, but that should be simply a goal to recover half of the money that's already been spent on it. If we were to sell it to someone for that, that person would now have a building that would be worth at least that much, would go on the tax rolls, and that would start bringing in about $7,000 a year in taxes. The money would come back to the town, not money going out. I was thinking that building could go on for sale as an old building with historic bricks, a new roof, new windows, and a working bell tower. It might be attractive to someone out there. Now, someone has said that if someone were to buy the building, they would treat it badly and they turned it into a dump. Well, there's a thing called deed restrictions and covenants. So that could be put in place, so whoever bought the building would have to preserve the historic exterior. You can limit the property to uses such as professional offices, educational, cultural, civic, museum, residential, or similar low-tax uses. You could require that the exterior, any renovations would keep the historic going. They could require to keep the property in good repair and maintenance. And you could have those deed restrictions continue, so that even if they sold the building, they would continue. So you'd have a building in a new ownership, but they'd have to maintain it, and it would be this beautiful building there. You could require a certificate of occupancy that once they bought it, they had to put money in to finish it. Now, the 1856 group says it'll take $1 million, so I would think a private person could probably do that for somewhat less. But then say they really finished it off nice and it was worth $1 million. Now we're talking taxes coming in of about $11,000 a year. So if this could go through, we could have someone who would preserve the building. We'd still be able to look at this building and rather than being a tax burden, it would be bringing tax revenue into the town of Monmouth. So I think the selectmen here tonight to look how are we going to move forward, and I think they're looking at what should people be voting on in November. And I think if you gave them the option, you want to sell it, and if they don't, then it'll continue on. That would be a fair assessment, and the legislative body, which is the people in this town, deserve the right to make that decision. And I think we should learn it's not just the opinions of people here is what that legislative body votes on, and I think in November, we will probably have 1,500 to 2,000 people voting, so it would be a true reflective of the people. And I hope we'll give the people a chance to vote on it and let that stand. Thank you.
Well, I've heard of, but first of all, I don't really like some of the names. My name's Hugo Master, I'm a lifelong resident of Monmouth. Former board of trustee member here for 12 years and chairman most of the time, and quite familiar with old buildings. And what goes on. I've heard a lot of opinions and discussions, and one of the things that's really discouraging again tonight is I hear a lot of the same. Hello? Turn it off. Went to sleep, okay. I've heard a lot of the, thank you. I've heard a lot of the same conversations, and I feel like we're just treading water. I've heard some of the things the other night I call a lullaby, I've heard some things the other night call very good ideas and the truth, a direction to follow, but here's a direction that I see. I'm gonna throw Mark into the bus again, I'm like doing that. I don't feel like I said that, he has a lot of good ideas, I like to quote him, don't give a fat head. He said this a while ago in a meeting that he's looking for a path forward. We should be looking for a path forward. And I think that really, in my opinion, needs to be the theme of path forward. So we keep talking about the historic significance of the building. That's definitely part of the recipe, and it's important to some and not to others. But I'm going to take and say, let's pretend that Mark built the building that's up there, stick-built building a few years back. We ran out of money, but we didn't get to finish the building that we hired Mark to do. So we set the historic stuff aside, but we have an investment of $900,000, and we're going to pay for it until 2036. What are we going to do? Hopefully, we wouldn't look to sell the property. I think that would be an egregious, horrible mistake, looking to our future and what our children are going to need in the future. But we need to do something so it's just not an empty building. So what do we do? So one of the ladies here talked about fundraising and so forth, but we need to find that path. And I think the path is to do something like we've done elsewhere in town before. There's a history of it. And Larry Bougie, Dr. Bougie alluded to it a little bit when we first started the meeting. He talked about Ottawagan Agricultural Society, Ottawagan Trailblazers Snowmobile Club. And so let's talk about, let's go right to the police department. That building was built in 1988 for $17,500 for the Monmouth Rescue Association on town property that they were allowed to. Here, they love to have you run an ambulance and be volunteers. We'll let you use some land, and we'll give rent a lease for you, $1 a year, whatever we did. I don't remember, I was part of that for 20 years. And they bought us the ambulance for $70,000 at one point because they thought we were doing a great job. So eventually, they closed their doors, but they served the public well for a while. So what that building did was, in their bylaws, it reverted back to the town of Monmouth. And what happened? The police department was able to use it. So something good came from allowing that to happen. So there's one plan that worked out well over the years. We'll go to Ottawagan Trailblazers next. There's a Mark built that building, by the way. I think it's 60 feet by 28 feet wide. We've probably got $80,000 more into it now. It's probably more than that. And it's on land that you folks all own. We pay $1 a year for it. But it also supports 40 miles of trail systems and also the economic impact here with stores and gasoline and restaurants, and all the people on the snowmobiles get to recreate because of this, what that building supports. And also will probably be that much more support over time for the Trails Committee, I'm gonna guess, because they're becoming multi-use trails in the top over time. So there's something written in the bylaws of that building as well. If the Ottawagan Trailblazers ever went defunct, it's written in their bylaws that it reverts to the town of Monmouth. Now the town owns the land, but they don't own the building, but if they would own it, should we close our doors? Remember that group too. Actually, the floor was poured with the idea that if we ever did go defunct, that it would hold Monmouth DOT or highway departments plow trucks. So it's designed to be taken over by the highway department if need be. So here are these arrangements that forward, organizations in the past. I'm gonna ask you, are the Cottawaga Trailblazers any better people? Was Monmouth Rescue Association full of people any better than the 1856 committee? I think not. I think the people that are on that committee are dedicated. A lot of them are longtime residents of the town. They're very smart people, enthusiastic people that are trying to do something very special. And we were able to find paths for other things in the past. We have precedents we can look at. Why can't we find a direction, as Mark would say, a path forward? So, thank you.
Thank you. Give a hand up.
I'm, Check 1, 2, there it is. I'm Ronnie Clement, I've been here 26 years. Somebody asked what brought people to town and such. We had family here. So we came here. They're no longer here, but we're still here. Our kids went to the school. That was one of the other reasons they said it was such a good school system and such, and I'm not gonna tell you it wasn't. But it was the teachers and the education part of it. It wasn't the building. Yes, my kids did go to the academy while it was middle school. They don't really care whether it's still there or not. I do have a question. There was talk about donations, and I haven't heard an actual number of cash donations, how much has been given to this building yet. Everyone keeps talking about different spots in the spreadsheet and formulas and whatever. There's still got to be a number somewhere, how much was given in cash, not just hours donated and such. But if it's more than 11,000, then great. You're doing better than the $25 per resident. If you are talking about the 450 something people that voted to keep the building, is my point. There's a lot of talk also about how it's going to be. It's going to be a community place. It's going to be all kinds of meetings and a place to gather and coffee and such and whatever. I feel like I've heard this story before. We spent somewhere around $1 million on the Helen Melody building over there. That's what we were sold at the time. That's what that building was for. $1 million plus, if I remember right. I could be wrong. Was supposed to be for that specifically, so that we could do those kinds of things. I will say, if you look it on Google right now, it says it's permanently closed. Helen Melody building. So, Melody, yeah, so. Okay, well then, did we not pay $1 million in a bond for that?
It was a grant.
A grant, and it all got paid back in kind of taxpayers, not a dime.
I don't know for sure, but it was.
And I stand corrected. Okay, either way, seems like that's the building that we're trying to talk about right here, where everyone could be put together. They're not using it for the theater. Apparently, we're not making enough money for the theater people to come back here this summer. That tells me something.
The theater people are separate from Pumpston. They're their own entity. They have nothing really to do with Pumpston Hall or Lisa.
Isn't that where some of the money came to pay for Pumpston Hall? They paid rent, so it's not getting paid now, so, okay.
But there's other things that are going on and stuff.
Okay, here or there, my point is, I'm gonna cut to the chase. I say we do sell it. I say we start with Mr. Calenda's idea, which is put it on a warrant for a vote, and that's the only option, yes or no. I'm looking at this one where it said the 2021 vote. There are 4 different options here. I don't want it confused. I want it exact. Sell it, don't sell it, and then we start from there. I like his idea, and as far as I'm concerned, that is the path moving forward. If it doesn't get sold, my opinion, if we don't get to vote for it to sell it, then I'm okay with just dumping it off to the committee and being done, washing our hands. $1.5 million, we're never getting that money back, never. If we're gonna put another 1.3 into it, that's good money after bad as far as I'm concerned. Let somebody else do it. I don't want more money thrown into the building because we're never gonna get back. I don't care how much business you think you can get there. If it was that popular and was gonna make that much money, some private guy would come along already and offer you twice the money for what it's worth and already be sold. We were told at the time it was gonna be too much money to repair and all that. That's why we're building a new school. That's what we did. We didn't tear down the other one. We sold it. Great. Off the tax rolls, actually, we don't have to pay for it, actually on the tax rolls, from what I understand, or I hope we're getting money from that, maybe I'm wrong. Either way, all I know is this one is good money after bad, we're not gonna make the money back, cut the losses, move along, and be done with it.
Thank you. Anyone else want to go next?
One or two. I'll be very quick. It's hard to make good financial decisions when emotional strings are attached to these decisions. I think that the building we all went to school there. There's an emotional side there, but what if we're just gonna play a little bit of a what if? Compton Hall owns the Monmouth Fairgrounds, is that correct?
Now, Monmouth, the town of Monmouth owns Compton Park.
Okay.
Dr. Compton gave us Compton Park and built this building and sold it to the town for $1. So he gave Monmouth Compton Park.
Okay. So, but Compton Hall, but the town of Monmouth takes care of that?
The town of Monmouth owns Compton Park.
Okay, I thought that, what I was thinking was that building could be the town library. And then that will open up the building here, because this building, I think, is eventually gonna
It's
start.
written in Dr. Compton's will that the library has to stay in this building.
Okay. All right, it was just 2 AM thing that's all right, well, forgive me.
No, and I think, thinking, just talking what Ron said, some things need to be done before we even think about selling that building, because it does border against the park. And there's a very fine line there. So I think there's a lot of due diligence that needs to be done on the part of the town, how we would separate it, what would happen, what the, parking would be, so that in my estimation, just what I'm going to say tonight is that we have to lean back on the committee to go and do some of these research things about. It's gonna cost money to have a survey if we wanna survey that property and figure out what can be divided. It's not as simple as let's put it up for sale, because it would have to be divided. And be kind of a chunk out between the 117 building and the park. And so there's some work that needs to be done around that. So it's not something that we can kind of resolve here and make a decision immediately. That things have to go back to the board, the committee, and then come back to us with some options.
I saw a few hands when they went down. Want to go next? Okay.
Why not set? We have speaking to the.
I have a little voice and so, my name is Artulian and I'm fairly new here in town. And I just wanted to express there have been a few times about what brings people here. We relocated from West Gardner, not very far. It was the community. It was a sense of community, the pride in the community, the culture. When we moved in, we were able to connect with our neighbors so quick. And it's the environment that we want to raise our kids in. And we respect the elders that have been here for years. And what is important to them, what makes the culture and community what it is for them. But with that being said, I think it's fair to assess it. If you have $2,000 income a month and you're spending 4 months of that income on taxes, that $25 does that. And that's $25 for this project. And then what about extra paving or whatever else needs to be done, it adds up. And I do appreciate the form of government we have here. And I do think it's a fair assessment to just vote on it and then go from there. Because yes, it won't be an easy one to sell. But that's what comes with that. Or if the town should decide to sell, we put in the work, to figure out how to do that responsibly for the community and just let everybody have their voice.
Thank you. Now there's multiple hands. You haven't really spoken that much, so I'll let you go first.
If we do have, if we have to find out where the land boundaries are and all that, shouldn't it be another committee? The 1856 committee is definitely dedicated to keep that thing open. With the possibility of them coming back and saying, this is not feasible, that's not feasible. Just to have transparent, if we go with that, shouldn't it be somebody independent doing that?
I think that's part of the reason why we have a select board member on the committee to make sure that everything's done fairly and appropriately. Yes.
Thank you for, I just wanted to point out, I wanted to thank you for pointing out the path forward. And I think that was a great statement. We talk about community, we talk about, you know, what brought people here, we talk about, you know, the community atmosphere and stuff. But I want people just to reflect in the last 4 years. We've lost our ambulance service. We look at our fire department, look at the building, it's a, what we have there compared to other towns that have less people, it's, and I don't mean this disrespectfully to anybody that works in the fire department, because we need them, right? Until you have an emergency, oh, we don't want to spend any money in the fire department. Look at the police department. So I guess what my point is that if we look at the path going forward, how much more good money will get put into a situation at the end? Will we see a profit margin from it, right? We need resources, we need the, you know, the financial backing that we're not a city or a town that has multiple businesses bringing in the tax revenue to cover some of these wishes, you know, some of these hopes and some of these possibilities. So, you know, as we look at this and we reflect back and looking at, you know, everything, we can't change the past, right? We can look at the path forward as you pointed out, but you pick up that phone, right? Your house is on fire. You have somebody breaking into your house, or you have a family member that's having a medical event, and they offer a great service in Winthrop. It's not in Monmouth, right? We're looking at dissolving the police department and doing a community with police department, right? Winthrop, Monmouth, you know, it's just a stone's throw away. But I just want people to think about this for a minute. You know, we're talking about community, we're talking about the path forward. What could we have done? You know, we can't change the past, but going forward, right? The police department, the fire department are a big part of the community. Anybody that's got kids, anybody that went to Halloween that just went by, there's community, there's the gallery, the fire department, what they do there, and all the local businesses. That's what we need to be supporting.
You're not resolving the fire of the police department, it's a consolidation. So there'll still be Monmouth PD and Winthrop PD. It's just a consolidation of resources. So we'll still have people here and their people in Winthrop.
Consolidating to save money.
No, it's not gonna save us money to consolidate.
Well, that was the initial thought.
Do you think it's a good idea to strategize the use of the current buildings in Monmouth and think about selling that entire lot for 117 plus that building?
I don't know where we'd vote or anything else if we did that.
Because that whole lot right now, I mean, that could be a great investor would come and put a nice little nursing.
But we
home.
can't sell we can't sell the
The playground.
Playground
It's
behind.
federally funded, so it gets into a murky
we'd have
area.
to, we'd have to move the playground to some other town-owned land.
You'd have to purchase land to put it on,
Mhm.
that isn't permanently in place now.
Right, we'd have to purchase land to move that playground to.
I think this gentleman had his hand up first, then we'll go to Hugh.
How I understand the playground is, yes, it's that you either move it, like you said, or you have to pay the grant back. I don't remember how much the original grant was, but that's another option. So there is an option there. It's gonna cost money. But if you could make it back by selling a whole lot, like what you just said, that's not a bad idea. The one other thing I meant to say was, the reason this building's taken such a beating is because you had talked about the school budget. We don't have a choice. There's other things we don't have a choice. This is a choice. That's taking a beating because it's a choice, and we're choosing somewhere to do something to cut taxes, and that's the easiest target. That's why this is taking a beating.
Hugh?
Besides the playground, you can't sell the very back lot, those were sold left for the old shop parking lot. That's actually part of Thompson Park, and the old station. I have my big record store. So it's part of the non-saleable portion.
Thank you for that clarification. I didn't know that.
Oh, I've got a comment.
Go for it.
But it's definitely not in firm. Okay. 17 million.
We talked about voting in there, and I don't know what the laws are. But every place that we voted here in town, be it this building, the school and 117, they have an entrance and an exit. And I assume that's mandated by the state.
Yes.
Are there two, is there a place that you could enter and exit on ground level there?
Or,
Yeah, it's good, yeah. We're gonna put a ramp up,
yes, it'd be a ramp out front to use it.
to come in and then go out on the side.
A ramp on the front?
But the state, you're supposed to submit to the state your layout for your voting area, and you're supposed to have clearance from other people by so many feet. You know, because I've worked in the election division down in Lewiston, you know, we, down there, they have 7 different wards, excuse me. And so there's much more spread out, but this particular election and in November, I anticipate it's gonna be even more crowded. I think we need to really be careful so that we don't get complaints to the state. And then they become involved in the fact of our voting and how it's set up.
So was handicap access at the front porch talked about when that deck was built and everything was done, or was that?
Getting getting a ramp that is portable, you know, like, I'm thinking like when I had it by 5, yeah. That you would put out during that time, and then it's brought in, it's a portable ramp.
So it wouldn't stay there, it would only be for election time?
Or it would be in the building for when needed, yes.
Good. So we've talked about, the nonprofit. Would the taxpayers of the town, be willing to forego selling it to donate the building to a nonprofit, which would help satisfy the 450 people that voted to continue with the project, would help to satisfy the 780 people that said no, that don't want to fund the project, but knowing that no more tax dollars are going to go into it because it now belongs to a nonprofit, does that satisfy both sides? Going to the 1856 committee meeting last week with that exact suggestion, I got this. There was, at that time, they are not interested in establishing a nonprofit. So I don't know, what the path forward is, and I was trying to propose one, but that didn't seem to be one that the committee was interested in pursuing, so.
Oh, yes, and then I'll let you go after done, yes.
Mark, I just wanted to comment on that. We said we probably weren't capable of developing a 501c corporate, nonprofit corporation in a short period of time. I remember you saying at the Masonic Lodge that we had to sell that building because the Masonic Order, which is a nonprofit, can't afford to keep it going. So for you to tell us that, you know, why don't you in 6 months come up with a nonprofit that can pay all the expenses? It just didn't seem feasible, and that's the only reason we said no. That wasn't because we're not for it, and that's why I came up with the idea about leasing it out. And this gentleman over here, Jerry, who I know and I like very well. I still think leasing is a very viable option because large corporations lease buildings, they don't go out and buy all buildings. So I just want to make that clear that we did not deliberately want to be disrespectful to Mark.
Thank you. Dennis?
Now it's a three for, it wasn't one and two, so. As far as that, the lease, if you lease it and then when the lease is up or the lease is broken or whatever. Refers back to the town and now it's still another burden on the town. Like you have to guarantee it be full, so what better way to keep it full than sell it? And two. If you do the nonprofit, you're not getting any income back out of it, zero for the rest of its life. And then the three, the myth that we cannot use the school, the RSU2 for voting anymore. I wish Justin was here to clarify it because he was part of the conversation. That the superintendent asked respectfully if we did not use that building anymore. He didn't say it's impossible. He said it's a logistical nightmare, not impossible. So if you notified him soon enough ahead of time and they did a workshop on that day where the students aren't there, it makes everything easy, but everybody just says it's impossible. That's false. And if they don't want to believe that, call Rick Amaro and have a conversation with him about it.
Thank you. Okay.
We have someone from, you don't want to
No,
talk?
I'm happy to say, but I'm a Monmouth citizen, I'm not
Right.
representing any other. board.
Right, but
I'm
you
here.
also, you're
But
a
I-
Monmouth citizen, but you serve on,
Correct, but just like you all are select board members when you are serving in a.
you can
public
put on your other hat
I
for a
would be
minute.
happy to share my experience, but I'm not speaking on behalf.
Right, put on your hat just for a minute.
The, as far as using the school, there's a state, Leanne Burton. Leanne, I'll walk to. I thought I could project.
Well, you can, you
Get
are,
away from that view for.
you are your mother's daughter.
So the challenge, Leanne Burton. And the challenge that we have if we use the school for voting is that there's a concern about safety. And so we typically would have to have students remote or not have school that day. Here's a suggestion of a workshop day. The board approves the school calendar in the prior year. So we currently, the board has already approved the calendar for the next year. And also, if one of the reasons that students, a safety concern having students present, is that there may be citizens of the town who are not allowed to be in a certain proximity to children. And so then if we keep the students in school, we prohibit people from being able to access voting. So there's really back and forth about making sure that everybody gets their rights to vote and our students get their right to a free public education.
But it's not impossible.
Correct, it's not impossible,
Right.
but it is a logistical
So if
challenge.
next week, so for 2 years forward, we said first Tuesday in June and first Tuesday in November is a workshop, they could physically do it next year.
I can't speak to the calendar, it could be
Sure.
a discussion,
What I'm
certainly,
saying
and
is,
it will be voted on, yes.
Thank you.
There are a certain number of days that students need to be in school,
Gotcha.
and a certain number of days that are allowed for a teacher workshop.
Is
Now,
the
where we're
18,
right now, isn't that in close proximity of the school?
Yes.
That's the same thing.
what the 18 to this?
I can speak to the exact distance. I'm terrible, I can't even tell you how many feet this to the back, no.
I think there were a few questions over here.
Very apt. There's so much lease for space for lease right now. Nobody is leasing a building. People are buying buildings for tax deductions and because people are either working remote or purchasing buildings. I fear that the lease situation is not a good net whatsoever in today's economy and the real estate. If you look around, everything is up for lease and it's been sitting there for a very long time.
Thank you. Hugh?
That's okay, Hugh, I can take it. Go ahead.
Explain a moment ago again about satisfying both sides of the vote. Oh, that's a move. I think that's, in my opinion, that's exaggerating the best path forward. I think it really very disappointing when people talk about selling the property, because egregious mistake. I think that Mark said something a few meetings ago, and Freddie quoted, and it was right on the money, and he said, not everybody's gonna be happy with what this all boils down to if we do move forward and keep building. And I think really the 501c3 is really kind of it's the only option that I can see that would work. And I know they think it takes time, but I don't really think it took us all that long. Down the street at the Firehouse Museum, where I'm going over there. And I really don't like it, and I love all these folks on the committee, but I don't like that the checks go to the town of Monmouth. I'd rather they go to some friends of the 856 or directly to them. I do not like, that's a very poor way to have it, that's going directly to the towns. The fire department, we receive donation that goes to our auxiliary, not in the town fund.
Thank you. Yes.
But was that the way it was set up by the town when? And can I ask another question about things I have not, well, I have been involved in a lot of nonprofit, I've never started a nonprofit. What is a typical timeline for starting a nonprofit and the resources that you need to gather in order to be established?
5 days. You have to go to irs.gov. I opened them right from a bank.
Yeah.
For my client, go in irs.gov, apply for an EIN, get your EIN, go to an attorney, they create a board of directors, they create basically a meeting, and that's your 501.
But you need funds to start it?
Yes,
A
your
certain amount.
original deposit, go to the bank, open it under the EIN, and then put your $25 into the account.
And you can pay to expedite it, and it can be faster.
Yes. You also have to have bylaws.
Well, that's your board of directors.
Right, no, but you have your board, you have to have your board of directors, and you have to have bylaws in place.
Correct.
Because that's what we've done with Control Taylor.
That's what your attorney would put together, is your board of directors, your bylaws, the procedures and all.
So there are some costs to doing that as an organization.
Yeah.
So
It's
if you haven't done that
not-
organization first, then it's gonna take more than 5 years, but it's not an exorbitant amount of time. But that was just, I didn't know how that.
Yeah. Or it costs, it's about 2,500, the last 5 wouldn't receive, with an attorney, a good amount to put down for. You can apply for the EIN number, that will be free, don't have them look, they'll charge you, just have them do your bylaws and board of directors.
Yes.
Just to build on that, Bobby, and I don't even know the answer to this, but for a for-profit, you can do your own bylaws. I wrote my own bylaws. And we have beautiful ChatGPT nowadays that pulls all of that information. So I don't know if it's required to have the attorney do your bylaws, so that could be a dispense that you can save.
And I think we have people in town who can help out with that.
Yes.
We just incorporated in our 501c3 Cockney Lake Preservation Association. It took us 2 months to do it, 2 meetings, no big deal.
Thank you. That's helpful. Anyone else? Yes.
So what do you suspect is happening at the end of this meeting? Are we making a decision? Are we tabling this and having another meeting? Where are we going with this meeting?
My thought would be not knowing what's gonna happen whether it's going to go into a nonprofit, whether it's going to be sold. At this point, my opinion would be we would suspend activity there as far as writing grants, fundraising, all that stuff. I don't think it's fair to go out and ask for funds, not knowing that you're still gonna have this thing, in 6 months. If the town decides that they don't want to do that, then where do we go from there? And if you're asking for a $250,000 grant for a project in your town that only about a third of the people, roughly based on voting, that seem to support, you could be taking funds away from a project in a town that has 100% support. And I don't think it's fair to take money until you know what is gonna happen moving forward. And I'm sure there's other opinions in the room that will, yeah.
I have a quick comment and then I'll let you go. So what I would like to see is if possible, would like the 1856 committee to discuss if they are willing to start the process for a nonprofit. And if they are, bring that decision back to the next select board meeting, which is in 2 weeks. And if they are willing to work on that process where we know it's not going to take too much time, then we can figure out what measure we would put on the ballot in November. Because if we were to donate the building to a nonprofit, I believe that would be a town vote as well. And so if we saw that effort from the 1856 committee and the, commitment from them, then I think that would be my preference. Yes, you had your hand up first.
There were 2 things. There is a Zoom meeting, that Chris and Steve have with the Maine Redevelopment Committee on Tuesday. So if you were to say to us tonight that we were to stop doing everything, would you ask us to step away from that meeting?
What does the meeting involve, do you know?
It's Maine Redevelopment. They're the folks that had started in 2024, working with municipalities on reusing schools and other buildings, municipal buildings, and redeveloping them for municipal use. They have a $25,000 grant for I always forget the word that they use. They have a sustainability grant, or where they help you do their secure the building and get it winterized, or we would use it for insulation to help with heat, but they have a certain term for that, and I always forget the word, but they had reached out to us and wanted to meet with us, and so there was a Zoom meeting scheduled for Tuesday with Steve and Justin and myself.
So that was number 1. I just wanted to bring that up. And also, I know I have received comments and questions in regards to donations where people have specifically said that this money is for such and such. And if this building is not completed or sold, they would like their money back because what they wanted was something in that building. And so I just need you to know that people will ask for their money back from the donations.
And I think that's something that the town attorney would have to advise us on what the legal proper route to go.
Because people send in for a window or a door, they said this money is for the window and it is in memory of, and so there was a contract with them that would be done.
Yeah, I think we'd have to let the town attorney sort through it and figure out what would happen.
Yes. And then you're next to this. Okay.
Yeah. So the window and door money, has that money been set aside and unspent?
No, it's all a part of the donation.
So you can't tell the part, so.
Well,
yes, we do. Yeah, we have it.
We have it.
Yeah, they seem to say 1856 is broke. That happens. This window on the windows and doors.
I think I figured it was like $32,000.
Oh, okay, so there's something.
But Canada Savings gave $25,000 and their ask was to be recognized as part of that, so.
Uh,
60 left.
Okay, I'll go to Dennis so you don't forget again.
We had this conversation about the donation at the select board meeting, whether they were conditional or non-conditional and all that.
We're waiting for a decision from the town attorney.
Excuse me?
We're waiting for a decision from the town attorney on that.
Okay. Quick Google search would say that there needs to be a written contract that would have been approved by the select board. And
My attorney's name isn't Google.
Okay, that's fine. But there's statutes are not what we're gonna pay your lawyer to look at.
Mr. Kalenda?
Yeah, this topic was brought up at the last meeting, and you would ask that they bring documents to show explicitly whether it was in writing or, to answer this question. Did you receive those documents?
I have not. No.
I sent them to Justin.
To Justin, okay. Jennifer had her hand up for a bit.
Your touched on is, let's say the town votes, and just for the record, I would love to see some real directs tonight, so that we don't have to keep coming back and doing this over and over and over again. So some, let's move forward and let's pick a topic, and this is what we're gonna do. But someone had addressed this a little bit earlier, is that what happens if this nonprofit organization just cannot fund this building? It comes back to the town, and we're all sitting here doing this all over.
Yeah.
And so it just feels like, how many times?
That could be written into it where, we say that it comes back to the town with the understanding that if it comes back within X number of years, the building is then sold or something. That's something that we could discuss. We'd have to figure out, again, the legality of how we write that all in.
We can't tonight say this is what's gonna happen going forward, because that,
Yeah, we can.
It's not all spending. And also say that we.
That's what we were called here tonight, and a lot of our understanding was that the board is going to make a decision. Are we selling, are we permitting the nonprofit to take over?
we can't say are we selling, because it has to go to a town vote.
How are we gonna put it on the warrant? That would be the question.
We don't have.
So the second part to this was, if this is all about someone, and I understand people make donations and people might want their money back. With the deed restrictions, there could be something. I bought a building in Augusta, in a historic, section of Augusta. I couldn't paint it, I couldn't fix a step, I had to have colors go before the board. And so there can be deed restrictions. There can be a plaque put on the outside of this historic building that indicates everybody's name, so that they do get, some sort of form of recognition, and that just becomes part of the building and the deed restriction.
There are at least 10 items that are in front of the town attorney right now that we need answers for before we can really move forward with any direction. Because we need those answers before we can make an informed decision. I wouldn't be comfortable with making any decision tonight based on the unknowns.
We have the right to make a motion about where, like, if we want to continue to halt all spending, or if we want to, say if Mark wants to make a motion to, say that contingent upon the 1856 committee saying they are going to establish this, we'll halt putting it on the ballot, or, a motion has to be made before a decision is made. And then we have to get quorum. So it's still 3 of us have to vote in favor of that motion. Yes. You.
Yeah,
Or-
just for us to kind of move this along, we're getting close to 8 o'clock. But the chairwoman said that this meeting, at the beginning, she said that this meeting was an informational meeting for the select board to hear from the town, to hear from interested parties in town. I think that was the purpose of the meeting. And this, the select board asked for the committee to procure some information for them, and that's great. Perhaps you could ask the select board to do something as well, in addition, perhaps coming up with. Putting the pieces together, like, you know, Darlene and others have said. What is the tax, you know, the individual tax burden for this particular project in town, you know, those kind of figures, and what those 10 things are that are related to moving ahead, moving forward, putting a plan, etc. Perhaps the select board could do while the committee does those are things that have been asked of them at the same time. That would be my.
Thank you. I'm gonna let Hugh go first, then you, Dennis.
So, two things, as the Parker says, there was an informational meeting, and I commend you folks for sticking to that, and not a special interest group getting us to move on something that 4,100 other people, or whatever the current voters number is. So that would have been extremely appropriate. The other thing is, when the $87,000 vote failed, it just seemed like the sharks in the water smell of blood, and you went on the attack mode, not me, but some folks in town on the attack mode. These folks didn't ask to be attacked, this was ready to move forward committee. They went, I would assume they thought when they both failed, well, that didn't make it, so, okay, on to the next plan. But since then, they haven't really had a lot of chance to follow the plan that's been under attack. So I feel if there's any meeting coming up this week for $25,000, was already in motion, you know, let that maybe finish. If you want to stop things, I do agree with Mark that for the time being, it's not going to take away possibly from other people that does fail. But I think anything even that they have going on a stove right now with oil and they know when they come to, you know, finish cooking that meeting. So, and then maybe start back to that. My 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now Dennis.
Now this is a briefer. So a few meetings ago, the board had said that they're not doing spending or anything like that. So asking for money, I mean, yeah, it's not spending, but you were pretty much told pump the brakes. That's one. 2, the donation part. If donations were given for anything other than what it was written for in the warrant that said to pay down the debt service. Sorry if they were misled on the way that they were donating money for, but it was the will of the people who voted for it to be paid down by donations and grants. So the fact that the $65,000 is sitting there, it should have paid down the debt already. And then 3, we had a select board meeting 2 weeks ago that it was on the agenda. And then it was brought up that, oh no, we need the 1856 to have time to have their meetings up where they can discuss what their path forward is, which they had last Monday. And here we are again, wanting to kick it down the road even further because that didn't happen. And if you watch the meeting, they did not sound interested in a nonprofit. It wasn't, there was no timeline given. It was just mentioned, do you want to do a nonprofit? Larry was one who said, we can't do it in 6 months or 12 months or whatever, but there was no timeline given. So, but they didn't even want to talk about the nonprofit. So we're just kicking. It's just crazy. Sorry, go on.
Hugh had his hand up first.
I wouldn't think of anything, they're still trying to do their job with things, and I wish they'd get off their back. This is getting to the unreasonable point of harassing. If I was them, I'd be getting returned, this is getting out of control. And I'd like to see the select board grab some control, it wasn't since last fall. And hopefully we're gonna have more constructive selectmen's meetings coming down the road. It was been open.
Thank you. Mr. Klenda.
Yeah, it seems like the solution moving forward with what goes on the ballot would be one question that would answer it all. Would be, do you want to sell it? Yes. If you vote no, the direction would be the nonprofit. And if that were presented like that, they'd either vote yes to sell it, you vote no, because nonprofit. Each side gets to have their what they want and let the people decide.
Yes.
And by me bringing facts, documents, and truths to the board is harassment. I raise my hand, I get acknowledged, and I point out the fact. All this.
Thank you. I think,
I'm just, sorry.
Yeah.
Just, one of my concerns is that, this is why I ran for the board, is that, property taxes have gotten a little out of control, for some of us, most of us that live on the lake or whatever. Some in town properties, newer properties, and, my fear is that with the hearing that our dump needed hundreds of thousands of dollars and our other equipment needs hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm a future looking person. And so I'm just wondering how much of the community is going to be left if this continues. So with that being said, I mean, I would like to make a motion to put it on the warrant to sell the building. And if number two, there'd be another question to allow us to dispose of it in a meaningful way, or however we think about doing it, if it is yes.
You already got that authority. When we voted excess property, you have permission already on the warrant to sell it.
those are different properties, not this one. There's that question allowed, I believe it was like foreclosed properties, right?
Well, the surplus equipment thing is like town trucks and
Yeah.
equipment that they no longer use. And when it comes to selling a structure that's owned by the town, we would have to get approval from the taxpayers.
Madam Chair, with respect, it is 2 minutes before 8 o'clock.
Good, thank you.
Any time limit on meetings, sorry.
Yes,
Sharon, when, no.
that's okay.
I'm sorry, I think I made a motion though.
So has there been any surveys of what they would use the old building for, that it was sent out to people? Cause I know they do stuff behind, underneath, Houston Library, and I don't know how many people ever show up, Julie would know. So I mean, if there's only like a dozen people that wanna come and play board games twice a week, is it worth it?
I think Leanne had her hand up. Did you still want to comment or ask a question?
I was asking the committee.
No, I don't know how to answer that question, Sharon.
Was there ever a survey that went out?
Because, no, I don't think, I think when we were doing the restructuring, like what the reuse committee, like what were we going to do the building?
Yeah.
That went out, but that went out to people like, what would you like to see utilized? What would we do with the whole building? Did we want to take off just the additions? Did you want to keep the gymnasium? Did you want to just tear everything down? And there was a survey, like, what would you do? What would we do with it? At that point, the reuse committee did send something out.
But there hasn't been anything since saying we're trying to make.
Once it was determined, that the vote came in, yes, we want to save the building. No, nothing has gone out from that point.
So anyone can want to save a building, but if they don't know what they're gonna do with that.
Well, I think it was when we said, okay, yes, we're gonna do this, and our hope is for this to be used for the voting, to be used for places to have meetings, because you have to have an RSU2 representative at a meeting should you use one of the buildings.
Yeah.
And so they're like for Boy Scouts, for Girl Scouts, for the Cottrell Taylor Foundation, because now with Helen Melody, I'm not sure where we're going to be this winter to do our Christmas baskets. It was to be, that's what it was going to be open for. And also the town did make mention to us that they could utilize some storage. That's all I can say, Sharon.
I had another question about another. So what are the things, the answers you're waiting from the town attorney? Because maybe that won't let you make a motion tonight.
It's just it's just a suggestion by the time.
No, I know that. And
Yeah.
it was a good suggestion. I'm just wondering what kind of answers we're waiting for from the town attorney.
I would actually like to ask the 1856 committee, is there any interest amongst any of you about looking into establishing the nonprofit at all? Because I think that that's really going to determine our path forward tonight in terms of motions.
Profit organization, you look at what types of organizations you're looking for, or who's gonna be the nonprofit?
your committee would form one, like how the firehouse or the firehouse museum, they have the, what's it called, the Friends of something, and that's a nonprofit. And so you would have a board, and one of my thoughts was if you did establish a nonprofit, you could have contingent, you know, there's always a select board member, one of us who's part of that. That way there's still like town involvement if you want. But is there even any interest amongst any of you?
So the nonprofit would inherit a $1.5 million debt.
Yes.
No, the town is on the line for that debt, not the nonprofit. Yeah.
I think if we could sit down calmly and not have it rammed down our throats, so to speak. I think I would be willing to listen and to explore the possibility. And okay, how do we move forward now? Because to me, I agree with you. I just cannot see us selling that building.
Would you guys be able to provide us an official answer by our next meeting? Where if you don't want to do a nonprofit, we could then have a motion to put it on the November ballot to sell. Do you think 2 weeks is enough time for you guys to sit down, decide if there's any interest amongst any of your committee members in going this path? Or is it not even something that you guys want to discuss?
The other is if the nonprofit takes this over and the town is paying the debt service, who's paying the insurance?
That could be something that would be worked out. You know, we'd figure out that process.
That is the money. There's no money for the 501(c). We have no money. If we develop a 501(c), we have no money. We have no money to pay the insurance. We have no money to pay an attorney. We have no money to apply for the.
4 years.
Well,
But that's the town's money.
It's the
That's
town-
not money.
But this is
Money.
so potentially if the remaining money in your account went with you, it could be something that would be written in, I would assume. We'd have to talk to our lawyer. We'd have to talk to the lawyer and figure out the whole process. But is this even something
No.
you guys are willing to
No, it
explore?
can't go to them.
I think that would be one of my concerns too, is that giving it to just any nonprofit without any financial solvency is very concerning.
By selling the agreement, financial solvency.
I just wanted to say that, Brian, that I like to know firm answer yet, no, that's a lot of money to not know what we're gonna, how we're gonna do that, and I think that the question is whether we're gonna sell it or not, that does not seem like a viable option, and this one can spend it right over.
And I don't think.
You know, if they could talk with that committee next Tuesday and find out about the $25,000 and what the redevelopment is all about, that would help us as a committee decide if we can form a nonprofit.
But that money will go to the town, not a nonprofit, it's not established.
I don't know yet, I haven't talked to anyone.
Well, that's what would happen.
When does the decision have to be made for the warrant to be printed?
Oh, we have
So
time.
like-
I think mid-September, early October.
So why not allow the committee to make that decision by that deadline? To be able to have the opportunity to research, so they all feel comfortable going into the nonprofit. And then be able to have a plan to come to, you said October maybe, end of September, October?
Ideally,
September,
yeah.
Okay, so then they would have that opportunity to come up with a plan. And present that. And then go from there. And
Well,
make that decision.
I think-
Unfortunately, I know it's kicking the can down the road. However, they have to come up with a way on how to figure out how to come up with the money to pay for the for the nonprofit 501(c)(3). Yeah.
I think my concern with that was that that was that last meeting that they were supposed to speak about, but they chose to choose their
You gave them no
time not wisely. And that was their time. And they didn't talk about it.
Can I ask a question? When we, we didn't give it a theater, to Helen Melton, you sold it to them, correct? Did that,
I don't know, Steve, I wasn't on the board then, I'm not sure what happened with
they
that.
bought the Grange from Grange Town and owned the building?
Right, the Grange owned the Grange owned it.
Okay, Jennifer had her hand up first, and then I'll go to you, Leanne, sorry.
Given the, that was at the last meeting, and with the exception of, this gentleman here. It did not sound like any of the committee members were interested, and what I heard was, no, we can't, oh my gosh, how are we gonna pay for the insurance, how are we gonna pay for this? But they're still expecting us to do this after we clearly voted several times, you don't want that anymore. Would it be possible for the board to make a motion to put it on the ballot in November to sell it? With the exception of, and they only have a certain deadline, that if they can come up with a viable plan to develop a nonprofit organization with the means to cover the cost of this, then it takes it off the ballot. But then the direction moving forward, so that we're not all coming back, having to do this again, we have the same song and dance. That, and I mean, I agree, I think that, you know, give them the opportunity, but they've had the opportunity for discussion to now show us the people of London, that you're actually going to move forward and do this. And if
I don't
not,
know how we can
then
put a
it's
warrant
already gonna go.
article on to
Well,
sell something that we don't have a say over. We have to do a budget on that back before we put an article.
Sell it, however, if they can. Sell it.
You're gonna vote to sell something that we don't have as its own piece of property.
Might get tricky, because we have to submit to the state. Yeah, we just have to make sure Justin has like the hard.
We don't have to set that on that lot corner or so close. We have to even break that out. Right, that's what I'm saying, we don't know.
Just because I know how late it's starting to get, we're gonna. Few more questions. I'm not trying to cut anyone off, but I know Leanne's had her hand up for a bit, and then Mr. Nato as well, and Hugh. And then if any others come up, we'll try and get to all of them.
I just want to point out that my understanding is the question of becoming a nonprofit came a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, is that last
Well,
Monday?
I've been talking about it since the vote in
Right,
June,
but
when the vote happened.
just clarification. And then when asked just now, remember, I don't know, Carl, maybe I don't know.
1, 2, 3, 4.
But here, sitting in front of me, the question was asked, and that nonprofit assumes $1.5 million. And you said no, and the response was like, oh. So I don't, was that not clear? Because I want to point out that if they didn't have all that information.
Insurance, we know we're not on the hook for that.
No.
Town borrowed the money.
Okay. So I think giving time to get their ducks in a row, understanding everything on the table makes sense.
Mr. Nato and then Hugh.
I just want to be mindful of everybody's time. I got a 4 a.m. Wake up call tomorrow so that I can afford to pay my bills and the taxes in town. But I also want to make sure that, you know, you use the comment of sharks. I don't consider myself a shark. I'm not in any particular.
I don't consider you one of the sharks.
But what I wanted, but I just wanted to point out is, you know, we can go on and on and on. At some point, when do we go with the will of the people? That's number one, right? But number two, Brian, right? Are you able to go back, like 15, 20 minutes? Because maybe I misunderstood, but you proposed a motion that got overlooked. So I just wanted to point that out. Is that still on the table, and are we gonna at least vote on that?
He has to have a second.
Okay, so that's what I was wondering, because I think it got interrupted. And so, again, I just want to be mindful of everybody's time. 4 a.m., you know, I want to be able to hear everything. I want to leave, but, you know, at some point, you know, we're just, we're talking about the same thing over and over again, just a different voice.
I'm gonna let Hugh go and then you can.
Very quickly, I feel like this group is starting to trying to get into the model of the selectmen. I think we've exhausted, and we've got the information, everybody's gonna have their say. And now it's up to you folks, you heard what we're saying, my only last advice would be is I'd like to see you in a closed room with that group, but all of us there, more than being served down at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Darlene?
Well, I think it's very difficult for me to vote on putting something on the ballot without knowing exactly setbacks, what would be required, how we would, separate that lot out. It backs right up to the Monmouth Park. And we would need to have some consideration in looking at all of that before we basically make a motion that,
Well, I think the thought was that we wouldn't put any energy and effort into that until the vote people spoke their piece. Instead of wasting more time and figuring that out, if we wanted to keep it anyway.
Wasn't this meeting advertised as a public forum?
Yes, it
For the
was.
public to come and listen and interact?
We do not have to make a
decisions?
motion tonight. On the agenda, it says discussion about, so
Exactly.
we don't have to make a motion. We do have the ability to.
It is a regularly scheduled select board meeting with an agenda, so if someone makes a motion and it gets seconded, we can vote.
When I spoke with Justin, and it wasn't that we were going to be making motions tonight, so I guess have a misunderstanding with what decisions we're here to make tonight.
Yes.
How would you, you said as far as, I'm sorry, Brian, but you said that, how would you, that we didn't need to get the setbacks and everything until the decision was made, but if I was selling my own property, I would need to have that before I could say to a realtor, this is for sale, these are the boundaries. So wouldn't you need that information prior to? And is that our responsibility as the committee to get it, or is it the town's responsibility because you own it?
It's our responsibility to get that, and it would be our responsibility to put on the warrant exactly what we were going to sell.
Right.
Not an estimate of
Right.
what we were going to
Right.
sell.
Right.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but the warrant article would say exactly the proportions of the property. Do the taxpayers agree to sell this lot, page and number?
Yep.
When you vote on, we still.
The separate team.
Right, it would have to have a separate deed and everything.
But the first thing we gotta do is get the vote of the taxpayers.
That's right.
Because we don't wanna spend money doing a survey and preparing a deed and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
We can't what? We can't ask the taxpayers if they wanna dispose of this building.
What, dispose of what?
The build,
But you said
We don't know what exactly the
know the
lot
exact-
size would be.
what it encompasses. I mean, I can't say,
Look at July 20, I think you can establish that.
right, I mean.
There's no deed to the property?
Right.
Well, there's
Yeah,
a
but
deed
it's
to the
separate.
whole, it's all part of one big
Um,
lot.
I guess we have 62,000.
this gentleman's had his hand up for a little bit and he hasn't spoken.
For the building. Don't you have to have the legal description of the building, so therefore you know the dimensions?
We know the dimensions of the building, but the building is on a lot that's connected to other things. So, in terms of what Mark was saying, we can say, do we want to sell this building contingent upon X, Y, and Z? It's all about how you word it. So we can put it on the warrant without knowing everything.
No, we cannot.
But, and then because what will happen if everyone votes to sell this building, it will not be an instant sale. It will probably take a few years.
We cannot put something like that on the warrant. It's
No,
not,
but you say the building. Are you buying just the building? Or are you buying land?
I would suggest that Justin approach this and look it up how you would do the warrant article first before you go into this.
right,
That's what he does.
right.
And then legal will look at that and tell you if it's appropriate.
Well, was it illegal for the RSU to give it back to us without that legal description?
I don't know.
Well, there was a,
The whole.
they passed the whole thing, right?
It included
So-
one
But
seven.
how could that have been happening?
Because Justin's on vacation and we have this question of the legality, let's ask Justin. And then with the understanding that at the next meeting, we officially make a motion as to what our plan is. Because I think that we do need to make a decision. And today was marketed as a discussion. We can make a motion if we really want to, but I think that in order to just make sure that everything's, kosher legally, we say we have to make a motion next week for sure, or not next week, in 2 weeks, about if we're going to put it on the warrant or if we're going to let, the committee continue to explore.
And Eric, sounds like that the committee has a certain amount of homework to do in this next week or two, and it sounds like the select board has a certain amount of homework to do, and Justin and the attorney. In the next week or two, perhaps the committee and the select board could meet just you guys, don't know how you do that, or if that's even possible.
We can't have more than 2 of us meet with them then.
Right, if this committee is gonna meet with the 1856 committee, it has to be a special select board meeting. And it has to be publicized and an agenda posted and,
Yeah.
so we still have Brian's motion on the table, which I think
I make a motion
Was-
that we adjourn.
well, we still have a motion on the table, which was to sell the building. I believe that's the way it was worded. And there hasn't been a second yet, so for a lack of a second, I would say that motion is gonna die. But I still feel, in light of everything that's happening, it's not appropriate for us to be going out seeking funds, donations, grants, whatever, not knowing what's gonna happen. And if there's a meeting that happens to discuss things, I'm not opposed to that, but it should not be a meeting that solicits funds, because we don't know what is gonna happen, in November with a vote.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Oh, can we just let a few more people? I saw that there was a hand. So let's just try and keep it brief because people do have work in the morning. So, yes. Yes.
So I didn't hear everything you said, Mark, but I did pick up that you were saying that you would allow them, or you would make a motion to allow them to continue with what they've already been working on, but not to solicit anything new. Is that correct?
Not to solicit funds,
New funds.
any funds.
Is that a motion?
It's not.
Not officially.
You already did that.
That was spending.
You said spending. It's already
That
said
was
no spending.
But if they decide to go into a 501(c)(3), and if they've already been working, do you know how hard it is to get a grant or to get donations or to work that? It could take months,
And if,
and they don't have to accept it if it ends up that this town wants to sell it. They don't have to accept that. They've already worked their butts off to get where they've already gotten. Now, I agree that the taxpayers don't wanna pay any more money, but you can't allow them or tell them they can't continue to fight until the town says no. That's not fair.
as far as
And
raising
it's
funds,
not a,
you're-
them soliciting new funds, something they've already worked on.
But isn't the solicitation of funds and false pretenses if you don't know what's happening with the?
right, you're soliciting funds, not knowing what the future might be. Well, I'm gonna propose a motion that we request the 1856 committee not to seek funding, be it donations or grants, until we have an answer as to whether a 501(c)(3) is gonna be established or the voters vote in November to dispose of the building.
Second that.
So I have a motion by Mark and a second by Brian to halt the 1856 committee from soliciting further funds until
Doing anything.
establishes made. All in favor? All opposed? So motion passes 3-1. I think the next thing is.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Are you all set and everything? Everybody has said what they want to say? Okay, I'll second that.
So motion by Darlene, a second by Mark to adjourn. All in favor?
You're